Okay, so this is a session on peer-to-peer marketing. The oldest marketing in the world has always been personal contact. So if we can imagine ourselves at local shows, events, coming into contact with people, that's always traditionally how business has been done. And maybe now things are online, or we maybe purchase through different catalogs, or maybe even through an app. So why is this still relevant to us today? Why is it still something that is successful, maybe more so than some of the new ways that we look to obtain customers? Now, word of mouth marketing has always been regarded as the most effective. Getting a personal recommendation from a friend or family member about a particular product or service always gives us confidence, it gives us trust, and it allows us to make a decision based on the experience that the person we spoke to is given. Also, when we meet someone, there's an opportunity there to gain knowledge about a particular product or service, and we can ask questions. It's a face where we can get a reply back. For instance, we may see product infomercials, or we might watch an advertisement, we might even view a website. But are we really going to then make that purchase decision right there and then? What's going to sway our decision? What's going to make us actually really consider to buy that product or service? So we're going to have a look through this seminar in terms of why peer-to-peer marketing is effective, the benefits that there are, how we can improve our current business by using this methodology, are we reaching enough people with this particular concept, and where it can be most effective. Now, in the digital age, we may not be able to decide for ourselves which goods to buy. Now, new goods and new products come out all the time, so there's always a flurry of new things for us to consider to purchase. Do we really need them in our life? Do we really need the latest iPhone? Do we really need the latest smart TV? Or do we really need the latest fashion? But these are all things that we want in life. We always want to know that we are moving forward with the times and that we have got things that matter to us in our life. And one of the things about peer-to-peer marketing is that we get the experience of the business person who's able to then convey a message across to the customer in a convincing way that will make that customer want to buy products and to be interested enough in that product, maybe even so much so that they continue the progress of that marketing process. For instance, if I go to a show or event and I'm talking about a particular product, then I make a relationship with that customer. Because I've done so in that personal way, then the word of mouth marketing that person can develop is a lot greater. Now, say for instance, I was just to hand in a leaflet into someone's door. Now, what's the chance that they're going to give that leaflet to one of their friends or family members? It's very, the chances are they're going to pick that leaflet up and they're going to put it straight into the dustbin, or maybe they put it into their telephone book, or they might put it up onto a notepad if it's, a pizza delivery thing or something they want to keep. Chances are it's not going to create enough word of mouth marketing. Even if we're looking at websites, these days, if you go into your social media sites, so many people are liking and sharing stuff. It's very easy for it to go unnoticed. Whereas if someone meets you and they've told you about a product and then that person decides to buy the product, the connection is just too strong, and it's really a formidable source of new customers. Now, there's plenty of examples where this works really, really well. For instance, at local markets, many what they call sort of high, that they call it urban branding, where a brand will suddenly pop up at a local market, a few people will buy the product, and by them just simply wearing that product and going to local clubs, local events, that brand starts to pick up, and maybe people go online because they don't know exactly where the show and event is, where these people are getting it at normally a much better price than online. Online does tend these days to be slightly more expensive because of the delivery costs and also the cost of running the site, because someone has to man the orders and have a look through and prepare. Whereas at a show or event, all of those goods are there, they're ready to be picked up, so the operational costs can actually be a lot lower. So why do we actually need to, someone to tell us about this product or service? Why do we need people to tell us anything? Why can't we, as individuals, do our own research, make our own minds up about what services? Well, when someone comes up with a new invention, it's to solve a problem. Most people don't even recognize the problem. So if it's a new gadget that's going to help us on our day-to-day life, or a new app, Well, that's something that people need to be made aware of. So there's definitely a real reason for peer-to-peer marketing to actually happen, because the main goal really is to improve the benefit of people's lives. That's why this particular type of market or marketing is relevant. Now, there are other forms of marketing, for instance, trying to keep brand loyalty. There's other forms in trying to sell off extra stock at reduced cost to obtain profitability. There's obviously, to make sure that people are aware if they're in a subscription service like a directory catalog, something like this. And they're all well and being, but it's not really new. Whereas a peer-to-peer marketing is normally about a new product, a new service, and that's why it's different. So the benefit for the seller and the buyer to use this method is that they have a very close knit relationship between one another. And the buyer and seller know that they can do a trade-off. Sometimes people are wary about using internet sites or internet apps because they wonder when they're going to get their goods, whether or not it's a reliable service, what is the quality of the good, is it really as good as it looks in the picture? Whereas when we do peer-to-peer marketing, we know exactly, immediately, what the quality of the product is. Now, many companies that I've worked for will use a sampling technique in order to make sure that the customer is guaranteed the type of quality of product. And this taste guarantee that I worked with this company Husay with, it's a very good way of marketing. It's fantastic. It really makes the customer in such a good position to consider a purchase that it really doesn't need too much knowledge for that customer to take. Now, that encourages the customer to think. And that's when the customer might come up with objections. And people only make objections when they're really interested in buying products. And that's a great method to generate that person's interest into the brand. Once you have got interest, then you can look at developing that customer's knowledge base about the product, about the brand, about the service, to make them into a position where they will buy. And not only will they buy, but they're in a position to recommend to friends and continue to carry on that marketing flow. So about myself, I work for a pet food company right now, and we operate a franchise system. It's a very successful franchise system. We've grown at a rate of 3 franchisees per month over the course of the last few years. We operate a very strong peer-to-peer marketing campaign. We operate with great product, great samples, and this allows us to have a really good conversion on the amount of people that we come into contact with, which is really one of the key pinnacle points about peer-to-peer marketing, is that you have to have good conversion. If you are meeting so many people and not getting sales, then it's not the right method for that particular business. For instance, the pizza companies, the takeaway companies, they can quite happily do a leafleting campaign into local houses and normally guarantee themselves a 1 in 100 conversion from every leaflet that they will get a sale. With the peer-to-peer marketing, if you were getting 1 in 100 conversion, it really would not be worth your while, because to meet 100 people takes a whole day. Okay, when I talk about how many people realistically you can meet in a day at a show event, 50 to 100 people is a reasonable amount of people to consider. Spending 5 minutes with each customer is all that needs to happen. However, that's not the end of it. Normally there's going to be some kind of follow-up. So once we've met the person, we normally can take their email details, or we can have a look at maybe send them some information in the post, or we can maybe then look at giving that customer a call. So it's all of that information then we use to really affirm the relationship that we have. Now, there can be personal conversation about that happens after we meet with a customer. This can happen in the home. So for instance, they say, I went to a local show and event, and they talk about it at the family table, and then they're all interested and they log online, or they start to research on various different blogs and websites. It can happen en route. So maybe for instance on the bus, and people say, I went to a show or event. So these are really strong recommendations, and that's why brands that operate this system can grow at a really reasonable rate. It can happen at work. So again, talking over the business boardroom table, or talking on the telephone, or chatting with your friends on social media. One of the things with the Husay model is it's got a very good social media network, and people often will post pictures of their pets, and they will write blogs about their pet's conditions and how the product has improved their animal's life. Also at events and in public places. If you are, maybe standing at the bus stop and, you hear two people talking about a product, or, it could be a film. Sometimes I'll be just sitting down, listening to people as they're going en route. And I think, gosh, actually that sounds like a good film. I might go and watch that. That's a good example of peer-to-peer marketing. It's an indirect form of peer-to-peer marketing, but it's, that initial contact has had to happen through somewhere, and it's normally through a personal contact. So it's always important to make sure who you're talking to. So, the question, the famous movie quote, you're talking to me, and, as long as you're talking to the person and you're identifying with their needs, then you will create a very strong relationship. So it can also happen in group conversation, socializing at home, traveling, and public spaces, etc. Very similar to personal conversation you might have. Telephone sales. So inbound, outbound callbacks, all examples of peer-to-peer marketing. So if you do a outbound call to someone and you're talking about a product or services, that's peer-to-peer marketing. That's me talking to someone about a brand or product or service and getting them to be interested. Obviously, outbound calls, the sort of cold calls, may not be as high in their conversion because I've spent many times working on various different lists, calling numbers after number, getting them hanging up on me. And it's persistence, but there's normally a good conversion. If you're doing a cold call, you should be expecting maybe 1 in 30 to 1 in 50. And, but in terms of calls, it takes between 30 seconds to get to the voicemail and 1 minute. And you can always leave the person a kind voicemail, something very short. Again, 15-20 seconds is it's always good if you're doing this type of marketing to make a short script and stick to it. So, and maybe to call the person on, a fairly frequent basis, but not too frequent. Let's talk about 3 to 4 days before any further contact, because we never want to pester any customer. We never want to feel that we're bombarding them and that we're trying to meet them all the time. That's really bugging to a person. So then we also look at the inbound calls. Now, inbound calls, again, if we're doing peer-to-peer marketing, we might do a show, we might do an event, might have met the person and given our business card to them. So we expect some inbound calls. If we've done a leafleting campaign, we will expect some calls. And that will instigate the peer-to-peer marketing that we can do. And now inbound calls, very warm. Again, we can always spend a lot more time, and we should do. We should always ask as well if they would like us to call them back as soon as we take the call. That way they don't feel like they're spending any money. Also feels like we're taking an interest. It feels like we're trying to get their attention rather than they're trying to get ours, which is really what we want. And callbacks, again, making sure we're always organized. Peer-to-peer marketing is as good as the person who is marketing the product. So if you're not organized and doing the callbacks, it's ineffective and it doesn't work. So there is in many films the ABC rule of closing sales. So it's always be closing. As soon as you close one sale, you get on a roll. It's like with anything in life. If you're running in the gym and the sweat is going through you and your blood is pumping, you break through the pain barrier and you can carry on and you can do a really good job. But always being closing or having that kind of mindset can actually put people off, because they're just like, oh, this guy just sold to that guy and he sold to that guy. I think this guy's making a lot of money. All he's interested in is my money and closing the sale. And especially if you do at a show or event, people see you, they're not going to want to, go up to someone who looks like they're just selling product, because they don't feel that there's that personal connection. So how do we do that personal connection? Well, there's an acronym that I will use, which is KILT, which is Keep Interested Leads Talking. So basically what we want to do is make the relationship as long as possible. Whenever I'm looking to make a franchise relationship, I would like the first call to initially last about 30 minutes. And the reason being is because I want to make a relationship with that. I want to get to know the ins and outs of that person. I want to know what their interests are. I want to know what their daily routine is like. I want to get a really clear understanding of who my customer is and what they're all about. That way, the next time when I call them, I can really then ask them about, what they've done to find out about me. And in doing so, they've generated their own buying interest, because they're not just interested in the product, they're interested in me. And then my form of marketing to them is so much more effective. So that's sometimes in industry a lot more effective, is not to close the sale, but to keep the person interested. And that way you also look at keeping your retention or your loyalty rate up there. Now, one of the things that a closer might suffer for is that he sold so many products and he sold to all of his customers so quickly that they don't need to buy product anymore, or they bought today and they're not interested about buying tomorrow. Whereas if we've kept them interested the whole time and we've used the kilt strategy, then that's not an issue, because we know that we care about one another. We care about the service that we deliver to the customer cares about the product, and they care about how that's benefited their life. And so the retention, then the loyalty that we've built up is so much stronger. So we also want to stamp out time wasters early on. So sometimes we will get people who are looking to just have a conversation, not interested in product, not interested in the service, they're just interested in a nice chit chat. And that's one of the fallbacks or the negative reasons why people might not want to use a kilt strategy. So how do we actually decide, who's a time waster? Well, it's very difficult, in fact. Some people might actually look at the person's name, or they might even listen to their accent, or how could they speak English, or their communication skills in general, and maybe even ask them questions about their money. None of these are good reasons to actually say that that person is a time waster. There's many times in business when I've done business and I can't even pronounce the guy's first name, and it actually turns out to be someone who's a really good business person. And I always say the best way to find out if they are a genuine time waster is to ask them questions. People who are asked questions, who are time wasters, cannot answer questions they don't have the answers to. So it's very easy to find. Just ask lots of questions to the person that you're speaking to. If you feel that they're time wasting, if they're not providing you answers, then they're a time waster. But don't go off just what you think they might have because of what they've put down as maybe their average spend on a product per month, or what they're buying currently as an indicator. So also we do peer-to-peers at conferences. So these events, we come into a large amount of people, so we want maybe more than one speaker at that event. So getting a team, 5-6 people to do a show event is always great. But it's always good that if we're doing peer-to-peer marketing for a particular service, that each member of the team is saying the same types of things. So it's always good to make a point list about the unique selling points about the product, or what the product and service actually does, and to just use those points so we don't deviate, or we don't say something that contradicts another member of staff. In this particular business I work for at the moment, pet food company Husay, there's about 6 key unique selling points about the product. That it uses nutraceutical components, human grade, natural ingredients, recommended by vets. These are all key unique selling points that we can easily say to customers and they can understand. We wouldn't want to go into all the protein and fat because that might be just too much information for a customer to take on. It's better to say if it's a product that's going to help with obesity, and be a bit more general at this stage. If the customer wants any further information, it's always good to have product sheets, price sheets, any kind of guides in terms of usage, and then to provide that in an email or to give them a leaflet if it's at a show or event. Also, we want to create conceptual inertia. So this is creating a cloud of ideas that are shared between those who are at the event. So the same 5 people, the cloud of inertia that we would call would be memorizing the unique selling points of the product, for example. So also groups of similar minded people tend to be at conferences. So it's always good to find out who your customer is. And if you're doing a particular event, say for instance it's a convention and it's a comic book convention and we're there selling maybe a magazine or something like this, well, the people there are all going to be fairly similar minded, so customers will be more like one another. So rather than to say just go out on the high street where customers are so different, that we're adapting our strategy all the time. So we may not be as effective because we're trying to say too many things at once to that person. It's better to go to types of events where like-minded people are all going to be there, so our peer-to-peer marketing strategy doesn't need to alter so much throughout the day. Again, running through the benefits, it's a more trusted form because people can see it in front of them. It can be a bit more informal. When someone comes up for a chit chat, there's nothing, you can have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, have a nice little conversation with someone. You don't necessarily need to just talk about the product. You can just talk to the customer. How was their day? Do they feel happy? How did they like the other stalls and the events? Have they seen any other good products today? What have they liked? We can ask very informal questions. Again, can be benefit. We can do a bit of research by this. If someone's looking to buy pet food, hey, have you seen any other pet food companies today? Have they offered you any good products? What do you think is the best food on the market? Ask them kind of things that aren't necessary. They don't see it as being particularly related to why I'm asking these questions, and then we can switch it around and say, well, how would you like a free sample? How would you like, taste guarantee? How would you like a discount on your first order? So then we also can go for discussions. We can look at things like that the peer-to-peer marketing is very cost effective. It's a very cheap way of being able to market a product. Don't have any fixed overheads mostly in this type of marketing. There's nothing to stop someone going to a local shopping mall, get a clipboard out, start meeting with customers, jotting their details down, arranging some callbacks at a later time. Doesn't cost anything to just stop someone on the street and say, how are you? What are you doing? My name's David. I work for a pet food company. How's things with you today? Is there anything I can do? Nothing wrong with doing something like that. It's perfect. And we can also reach our target audience more effectively. If you're doing an email campaign, you do an email to, 100,000 people. How many of those 100,000 people are going to really want that service, that product that we're offering? I'm sure many people might all want a Lamborghini, but if we market to 100,000 people, probably none of them actually would ever be in a position where they could afford a Lamborghini or would want a Lamborghini really, with other costs that are going to be there. So, it's always about, making sure that we reach our target audience. So when we talk to someone, we can find out very quickly about what kind of goods they buy, and we can decide for ourselves whether or not this is a person that we want to continue a conversation with, keep them talking, keep them interested with us, and to eventually sell them product. So drawbacks or costs. Well, the biggest drawback with peer-to-peer marketing is so time consuming. That is the biggest cost. It's not a monetary thing. It's just time. If we're spending 15 minutes, half an hour with someone talking on the phone about franchise, or we're selling a product, or we're selling a mobile phone, even mobile phone, I would probably never want to close a mobile phone deal 10 minutes, and I would still feel that it's not a strong close. I'd probably want 15 minutes to 45 minutes to really connect, explore, recommend, and to close that customer. Then we look at reliability through facts and opinions. Again, if we go to a show or event, someone might overhear an objection and it might put them off because it's not a personal or private space. So that can be something that we need to consider. One-sided arguments can also be a drawback, with this particular type of model. Again, if we're at a show or event, sometimes you'll get competition come up to you just to see how your sales patter is, and they'll try to get you to argue and ruin your day and try to make you feel flustered and stressed out. So it's, a one-sided argument there. You get people, they are the kind of time-wasting type of individuals, and, they can provide very narrow views. Also, it's a limited reach. You can only reach the amount of people that are at that event. Your voice is, so loud, and it can only reach so many people there. And you can only talk to one person really at a time. So it's very difficult to obtain massive reach like you might do with an e-shot or email campaign, something like this. So improvements. So how can we actually increase the effectiveness of our peer-to-peer marketing? Well, one of the things is to improve our listening skills. So one of the things that I like to do after a call is to make notes. Now, the reason that I like to do that, not just, I make notes while I'm on calls and selling products and services, but I also like to take some time out to write some notes down after the call is finished. This is to prove to myself that I've actually been listening to this person, that I've really been taking on board everything that this person has said. And I do lots of exercises myself to make sure that my listening skills, how much did I remember in the call? Or I might write down, I might have set up 2 appointments on a day, and I will make short notes after the appointment. The next day, I will make the same notes again, and I'll compare the 2 notes to see how well I was listening, to see how much I remembered, because a good listener is someone who can remember really well. Seminars, again, can help improve. By conducting your own seminars, that's a great way to improve, because you can listen back to yourself and you can, tailor your approach. But also listening to other people. One of the seminars that I like to listen to, I love listening to Tony Robbins seminars. I could listen to that guy all day long. He's got such a fantastic way about himself. I sometimes listen to very unrelated seminars too. I listen to sport personalities, wrestlers, other business people, famous people, who might, give their, 10-second, rants on, how they've improved their day or something like this. So I like listening to all of those things. You can also look at blogs, see what other people in similar industries are saying, or listen to what your customers are talking about. This can, again, increase your effectiveness of peer-to-peer marketing. By attending training is a great way. So there's many different workshops. You can contact your local library, council, local business organisations, local governments. They've all got these things in place. Workshops at local golf clubs, or they've got workshops at local church halls, things like this. These are all things that you can do. And practice is the best way. So whenever I help start up a new franchise, one of the things that I will always say before they make a decision to do a business, test out with your friends and family members. If you can convince them and you can have a general conversation about a product or service with them, then the chances are that you can have that same conversation with other people down the road. So then you can think about the next street and the next street, and you can continue to think like that. So if you can't convince your friends and family members, there's no point trying to convince a stranger, because they won't buy into it. Your friends and family are going to be your harshest critics, because they really care about you. And if you can't convince them, you're never going to convince a member of the public. So, are we reaching enough people with peer-to-peer marketing? Well, over the course of time, we're going to meet more and more people. So, actually, yes, we are going to meet enough people. Typically, if we're doing a peer-to-peer marketing, and that's the only kind of strategy that we're going to be using, we should easily be able to pick up, a customer per day, 400 customers in a year in peer-to-peer marketing, and just using that without anything else, that's more than attainable, in fact. I've done shows and events where I've met between 50 and 100 people. My conversion rate has been 1 in 5. And each person is spending £30-40 per month on their goods. So it's more than easy to actually be able to attain this. So it's not a question of how many leads, but how many good leads are converted, using our time effectively. And using secondary tools to impact our peer-to-peer marketing. For example, using samples, using flyers, catalogs, having a website we can direct people to, telephone number, business card, even a livered van, gives confidence to people. It shows them that we really care about their business. So peer-to-peer is a numbers game. So it's all about how many number of customers there are. It's always a good idea to know your market, to know exactly how many people are out there and doing the business. If we don't know the market, then, how do we really know ourselves that there's actually enough people out there? That can be difficult. It's always a good idea to have a look at things like demographic reports. Now, you can look at software tools, Mosaic platforms, Experian. There's lots of information on particular manufacturer sites. So, for example, if it's an industry like, pet foods, then you can look at something like the Pet Food Manufacturers Association. If it's mobile telephones, you can look at Ofcom figures. You can look at various other telco companies, and you can find information about the customers in your local area. Companies like Mintel as well can give lots of good reports. There really is too many ways to find out, who your customers are, what they spend, and how often they buy the products. So, do complete demographic research to help the effectiveness of your peer-to-peer marketing, and note the local businesses within the area, because again, by focusing peer-to-peer marketing just, for directly to your customers, if you do it directly to the business owner, that's going to then affect his business, and then he can do the work for us to then put that peer-to-peer marketing to the rest of his customer base. So, you know, that might be one of the first avenues that we go for when we start up. But also, we want to be careful of that market, because we don't want to approach these people before we've done enough preparation or we've had enough practice with dealing with these businesses. So also, we should look at the industry revenues. Again, look at government figures, look at how much the industry is worth, divvy that up into various different sectors or into your local area, so that we can find out, you know, just how effective, if we were to do a business in that area, it would be. We can look at things such as their spend of the customer, and again, we can look about their friends and families. It's always good when we do things to, you know, ask them about their friends and family spend, or, you know, what other businesses do you supply goods to, and what's their spend with you. Maybe we can create a relationship, maybe we can create an affiliate or a partnership model. So watch customers in the shop. You can look at their shopping bags. One of the things I like to do is always to go down to local supermarkets and count how many products a person has in the basket. And I like to watch people in the supermarket and see what products they're picking up. I like to see what aisle they're on, and I like to take notes. I like to find out what their spending habits, because that tells me what that person is really interested in, and it tells me a lot about their personality. You hear often, you can tell a lot about a man by the shoes that he's wearing, or you can tell a lot about a woman by the shoes she's wearing. Again, that's quite true, because you can tell, you know, what shop she's on. So, you know, you can tell what her average spend on those shoes were, and you can kind of assume a personality around that. Again, it's a generalization, but again, you can do the same thing by looking at shopping bags, or just looking in the local area. You know, see how many people are coming out the posh shop in that area, see how many people are coming out the price sensitive shop in that area, and have a way up to see, you know, what kind of customers would it be best for you to attract. Those that have got a budget and those who don't have any budget. You know, there's two types of market, you know, price sensitive customers and those who aren't. And both of them are very valid. You know, people who are price sensitive, just because they care about the value of the product, doesn't mean that they're bad customers. In fact, they tend to be very loyal. So in some circumstances, they can be a better form of customer. Whereas someone who's buying the latest trend and doesn't care about their money, well, you know, they're buying this because it's in fashion today, and they're not going to buy it next week. Whereas the price sensitive may be someone that is a more reliable customer. So again, remember to ask customers what they need, what they want, how much they have. These are all good indicators. Now, cost per lead. In peer-to-peer marketing, it's not really costing us anything other than time to meet with each people, but you know, there are many different marketing techniques where you have to pay, and that can be detrimental to a business, because, you know, if you're paying for, you know, email data, or you're paying a, you know, service provider to ask them what, you know, they're liking, what they're sharing on their Facebook site, that's a very expensive form of marketing, and it's not very effective, because there's nothing to stop that customer changing their mind about what they like and what goods and service. Just because they liked, you know, that brand today doesn't mean they're going to remember it tomorrow. So where can it be most effective? So again, remember that it's really good at shows and events to use peer-to-peer marketing. Again, it creates great relationships around home, talking about things en route as well. So again, it inspires people to talk, you know, whilst they're driving, or whilst they're on the bus or the train, to talk about it, and then we get indirect customers from there. Again, at the workplace, we may want to put up some posters into, you know, the workplace, offer them some discount to the people if it's a large warehouse company, for instance, and there's going to be lots of people who are customers. Why not put up some posters inside that company and offer a discount? So the company does it because it benefits their staff. They're all going to get a fantastic price. Again, it can be effective on the telephone. Again, if we're making outbound or inbound calls, we can actually get the message of our products and services out there directly to the customer. And again, on social media, we can make a relationship, we can like, share, but again, it can become cluttered. So take the time to make the customer decide for themselves if they want to purchase and have that purchase decision. Again, with the Who Say business, we always look at various different ways to get our message out to the customers positively, by sampling, by offering proof, certifications for the goods and services, testimonials from other customers, talking about them, blog sites. We have an optimal blog, which is a fantastic source from various different industry professionals, vets, people who are involved in the pet industry, breeders, kennels, all talking very positively about the product. These are great things for people in peer-to-peer marketing to want to go and research. And also remember to always have that cloud inertia with the ideas of the products and services. So the key concepts, unique selling points, and to make sure that anyone who's involved in the business is mentioning the exact same key concepts. Because peer-to-peer marketing, it might be me talking to the customer, but that customer might go away for 3 months, and then a new member of staff, I could leave the company, a new member of staff steps into my shoes, and they're now talking to the customer. If we're not, if there's no relationship in what we're saying, then that customer is almost like they've received 2 different forms of marketing, and that customer's mind would change. One of the things I know with the business I'm working in, I've spoke to people from 3 years ago who spoke to the person who was previously doing my job, but because we've got such inertia between the concepts that we are actually trying to portray, there's more confidence. And in fact, by seeing that there's more people involved in the business and seeing the business grow, that gives them more confidence. So actually it's a real benefit for them when they come to join us. So that's peer-to-peer marketing. It's a very direct way of speaking to customers. It's probably the oldest fashioned way of doing things, but it's really one of the most easiest ways, effective ways to go out there and start a business. If you're looking to start a franchise business, or you're looking to develop and be your own boss, or you just want to know more information about business, I do a video log and I shall upload videos every few days, few weeks. Please have a look on there. Always adding things either about the business I work in, or just generally with other people that I speak to as they set up their businesses and they become successful. So if you want to know more, please feel free to comment and I can answer any questions. If you've got any suggestions, or there's any topic that you would like to learn a bit more about, I can always use case studies from companies I've used before, and I can provide you with links to people on LinkedIn as well who might be able to help with anyone. So if those are things that you're interested in, then please do comment and please like and share. I'm more than happy to spend time with you and discuss how you can improve your business. Thank you very much. My name is David McMiniman, and this has been a presentation on peer-to-peer marketing.